Welcome back to Galaxy Recaps. Today we'll be diving into an action thriller film titled Den of Thieves. Enjoy the recap. The film begins just before dawn. An armored truck pulls up outside a donut shop in Los Angeles, with two security guards heading inside. Suddenly, a car and an SUV box in the truck. Outlaws, clad in body armor and gas masks, burst out with shotguns and assault rifles just as the guards step out of the shop. The truck driver quickly radios the LAPD, reporting the holdup. As the outlaws aim their weapons, one of the guards reaches for his gun, but he's instantly gunned down. The driver meets the same fate when another outlaw fires at him. With brutal efficiency, the outlaws pry open the truck's rear doors and drag out the fourth guard. The LAPD arrives, but their handguns are no match for the outlaws' firepower. A fierce shootout erupts, leaving 4 officers and 1 outlaw dead. Despite the chaos, the outlaws escape with the armored truck. They retreat to a warehouse where Ray, their leader, scolds Bosco for killing the security guard. He reminds the crew they need to clean up the truck, leaving no trace. As Ray inspects the truck, Ensign asks if he's okay, to which Ray grimly replies, "We're cop killers now." Meanwhile, Detective Nick O'Brien arrives at the bloody crime scene, where his team from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, LASD, stands around the fallen outlaw. Detective Baracho gives Nick the rundown, and Nick quickly realizes they're dealing with professionals, thieves who knew air support wouldn't be available. Detective Murph points out that the outlaws only made off with an empty armored truck, and Detective Tony Z speculates that a bad tip led to a botched heist. Across the street, Bosco watches from a car, snapping photos of the detectives. Back at their hideout, Bosco shows Ray the pictures, pointing out Nick as the one in charge. Ray immediately recognizes him. Ensign chimes in, mentioning that Nick used to play football at South, while Ray informs the crew that Nick now heads the Major Crimes Division. Donnie, the getaway driver, looks at Nick's photo but quietly walks away. At the LASD, Nick and his team dig deeper into the case. They suspect it was an inside job since the outlaws knew about a transfer not scheduled through the usual carrier. All signs point to Ray, recently paroled just 8 months ago. That night, Donnie is bartending when a Federal Reserve Bank employee forgets his Fed access card at the bar. Donnie pockets it and heads over to Mac, another member of Ray's crew. Donnie downs a shot with Mac and 2 friends, Ba and Alexi. Meanwhile, Nick sits at the bar, questioning Donnie. Donnie explains the bar is neutral ground. Everyone's welcome. Nick presses him, saying Donnie must have heard some interesting stories. Donnie confirms, but keeps it vague. After his shift, Donnie gets into his car, but before he can leave, Nick tushes him through the open window, knocking him out cold. When Donnie comes to, he's lying in an unfamiliar bed. Stumbling out of the bedroom, he finds Nick's team and 4 women in a seedy motel room. Nick confronts him, flashing a surveillance photo of him meeting with Ray. Detective Gus digs deeper, revealing they know all about Donnie's past: grand theft auto, time in county jail for attempted manslaughter, and holding the record for the fastest speeding ticket in California history. Gus warns him he's one mistake away from going back behind bars. Donnie tries to downplay his involvement, saying he's only seen Ray at the bar a few times. Nick isn't buying it. He points to a tattoo on Donnie's arm, a skeleton with regulators inked beneath it. Nick explains the meaning. A clique, a gang of cops who play by their own rules. They don't arrest criminals, they eliminate them. Nick leans in, taunting Donnie, asking why a coward like him hangs around with a crew of hardened convicts. When Donnie hesitates, Nick grabs him by the throat, demanding answers. Desperate, Donnie admits he's just the driver and doesn't know much about the crew's inner workings. Satisfied for now, Nick tells Donnie to keep doing what he's doing, they'll be watching. Later, Nick returns home at dawn, only to face a confrontation from his wife. She accuses him of cheating, showing him a text he mistakenly sent to her. Furious and hurt, she takes their daughters and walks out, leaving Nick alone. Meanwhile, Ray's crew is surveilling the LA branch of the Federal Reserve. Ray briefs the team, explaining it's the only bank that's never been successfully robbed. He details the Fed's impenetrable security and reveals that 53 break-in attempts have failed to make it past the lobby. "That's why we're gonna rob it," Ray declares. Back at LASD headquarters, the regulators dig deeper, uncovering a connection. Ray, Ensign, Bosco, and Donnie all served together in the Marines. The regulators are combing through unsolved heists, quickly realizing there have been no major sophisticated robberies during the 10 years Ray spent behind bars. Nick pieces it together. If they take Ray down, they'll likely solve all the unsolved cases. Just as they head out for a lunch break, Nick is blindsided with divorce papers. Meanwhile, Ray and his crew regroup at the warehouse. Ray outlines the plan, focusing on the Fed's operations, particularly on the counting floor. He explains how every day the Federal Reserve erases the serial numbers of unfit bills from their database. Between 4 and 5 p.m., these bills are shredded, with the waste taken to the dump by a disposal company. Ray reveals that in the $100 bill room alone, around $30 million is marked unfit daily. If they can intercept the bills before they're shredded and make a clean getaway, they'll have $30 million that no one's looking for. To infiltrate the Fed, Donnie lands a job at a Chinese takeaway that regularly delivers to employees at the bank. Posing as a delivery driver, Donnie strolls into the Fed with 2 takeout bags. Security, unsuspecting, hands him an access card and buzzes him in. Donnie delivers 1 bag to the cafeteria staff, but sneaks the second bag into a bathroom, hiding it inside a ventilation shaft. Later that night, Ray and his crew are dining at a restaurant when the regulators show up, coincidentally seated nearby. Nick wastes no time making things awkward. He approaches Ray's table, greeting Donnie as if they know each other from the gym. Then, in typical Nick fashion, he proceeds to insult Ray's old football team and makes inappropriate comments to the women at the table. Gus pulls Nick away, trying to smooth things over, but the damage is done. Back at the warehouse, suspicion is brewing. Ray's crew begins interrogating Donnie, convinced he might be a cop. Donnie denies it, but Ray pulls a gun on him, demanding to know how he knows Nick. Under pressure, Donnie finally admits that Nick approached him and knows about the crew. He insists that he hasn't betrayed them and hasn't seen Nick since their run-in. Ray, sensing the truth, lets Donnie off the hook, but not without a warning. Donnie must ensure that Nick knows the heist is happening Friday. The tension escalates when Donnie confronts Nick at a suit store, angry about how Nick nearly blew his cover at the restaurant. He informs Nick that the heist is set for Friday, though he's still in the dark about the exact location. Later, Nick finds Ray at a shooting range. As Ray fires off rounds, Nick joins in, trying to show off his shooting skills. Ray, however, is unimpressed. In a display of deadly precision, he unloads several rapid-fire rounds. When Ray leaves, Nick inspects the target, irritated to see that every single shot from Ray hit dead center. Nick heads to a club where Ray's girlfriend works and watches her perform. After the show, she approaches him, whispers something in his ear, and they leave together, ending up at her apartment. The next morning, just as Nick is still lounging shirtless in the living room, Ray walks in. His girlfriend quickly scurries out, leaving Nick and Ray to size each other up. Their eyes lock, both glancing at the gun sitting on the table. Nick, calm and confident, motions with his eyes, giving Ray the green light to grab it. But Ray, grinning, doesn't take the bait. Instead, he casually strolls past Nick into the bedroom, shutting the door behind him. Nick leaves, coolly getting into his car. He immediately calls one of his contacts, revealing the location of Ray's next heist, information he'd gotten from Ray's girlfriend. In the bathroom, Ray's girlfriend informs him that she did exactly what he asked her to do. The day of the heist finally arrives. The regulators are on high alert, surveilling the bank when a van pulls into the parking lot. Ray and his crew exit, donning bulletproof vests, face masks, and armed with assault rifles. They storm the bank, blasting the cameras and shouting for everyone to get down. The crew moves quickly, collecting cell phones, binding hands with cable ties, and throwing bags over the hostages' heads. Ray directs the bank manager to call 911, demanding $10 million delivered by helicopter, fully fueled, within the hour. He coldly adds that for every hour their demands aren't met, a hostage will be killed. He also warns that no law enforcement is to approach the bank, and if a negotiator tries to contact them, a hostage dies. The LAPD and FBI soon swarm the scene, sirens blaring. Inside, the bank manager opens the vault, following Ray's orders. The phone rings, and Ray answers it on speaker. The LAPD negotiator responds, saying they're working on fulfilling the demands. Ray calmly replies, "You just killed a hostage," and hangs up. Bosco, without hesitation, drags a hostage to the back of the bank. A gunshot echoes through the building. The negotiator calls the bank again, and this time, the manager answers. He explains that the robbers have already killed a hostage and threaten to kill another if he calls again before their demands are met. He then asks if they can have 90 more minutes. Ray nods and the manager confirms it. Outside, law enforcement studies the bank's schematics. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the building, and they assume Ray's crew has blown open the safe. But Nick spots something unusual on the blueprints and asks Tony Z what it is. Tony explains that it's a sewer line, but according to the map, it's been sealed up. Nick eyes a nearby manhole, piecing things together. Without hesitation, he tells his team they need to move. Grabbing a crowbar, Nick pries open the bank's front door and rushes in. He checks on the hostages, finding them shaken but unharmed, and heads to the back, where he finds the supposedly shot hostage, alive and well. Meanwhile, Ray and his crew are already making their escape, climbing out of the sewer through a manhole. Inside, the regulators sweep the bank, weapons drawn, and reach the vault, only to discover a hole in the floor that leads down to the sewer line. Nick wastes no time and is already descending into the sewers, tracking them. At the same time, Mac makes a call to the Federal Reserve, posing as a representative from Alameda Security Company. He schedules a drop-off from Pico Rivera Savings for 2:45, just 2 minutes away. Ray and Ensign, disguised as Alameda armed guards, arrive at the Fed driving the armored truck they previously stole. It's been cleverly revamped to resemble an official Alameda truck. They pull up to the security gate and flash their IDs to the Federal Reserve officer, who waves them through. Parking the truck, they unload 2 large money tubs from the back and roll them into the receiving area on the counting floor. The tubs are swiftly wheeled into the $100 bill counting room by Fed employees, while Ray and Ensign head to the waiting area. Below the Fed, Bosco is stationed in the utility tunnel. He receives a radio signal from Ray confirming that Donnie is inside the counting room. At that moment, Bosco flips a switch on the power grid, triggering a brownout across the Fed. The brief power cut shuts down the banknote shredders, along with the cameras and motion sensors in the $100 bill counting room. With the systems down, a police security guard tells the employees to take a break while everything is rebooted. As the counters and police exit the counting floor, Ray radios Donnie, letting him know it's time to move. Hidden inside one of the money tubs, Donnie crawls out, surrounded by stacks of $100 bills. He quickly restacks the cash back into the tub, preparing to smuggle it out. Meanwhile, one of the Fed employees who frequently orders Chinese takeout calls the restaurant. Mac intercepts the call, flawlessly keeping the cover in place. The Fed employee complains about her takeout, frustrated that it's been over an hour since she placed her order. Mac, maintaining his cover, puts on a fake Chinese accent and assures her it's on its way. Back at the Fed, a police security guard notices the cameras and motion sensors in the $100 counting room are still offline. He manually overrides the system, telling another guard they need to get a count. The guard heads to the cafeteria to bring back the counters. Meanwhile, Donnie is hidden behind a table in the counting room, hurriedly stuffing unfit $100 bills into black Ziploc bags and tossing them down the trash chute. In his rush, he accidentally trips the motion sensors that have just been reactivated. The security guard returns with the counters just as Donnie receives a radio message from Ray telling him to bail. Acting fast, Donnie unscrews an air vent cover, crawls into the shaft, and quietly closes it behind him. As he moves through the vent, Donnie informs Ray over the radio that he's in the clear. Ray signals Bosco, who flips the switch to restore power, bringing the Fed back online. With everything back to normal, employees return to work. Donnie, having made it through the ventilation shaft, jumps out into the bathroom where he retrieves the Chinese takeout bag he stashed days ago. Using the access card he swiped from the Fed employee at the bar, Donnie navigates the building unnoticed. He delivers the old cold takeout to the grumbling women in the cafeteria, making his exit without raising suspicion. Meanwhile, Alexi and Ba, both on refuse removal duty, drive separate garbage trucks for the same company contracted by the Fed. They cross paths at an intersection, exchanging a subtle nod before continuing their route. Back inside the $100 counting room, the counters verify that the Alameda drop-off matches the records. Satisfied, they roll the now empty tubs back to Ray and Ensign, who are buzzed out of the waiting area, and proceed to leave. Down in the basement, Alexi arrives to pick up the garbage, loading it into the refuse truck he's driving. At the same time, Ray and Ensign drive away from the Fed in the armored truck. Bosco follows closely behind one of the refuse trucks, keeping track of its location. Once Bosco relays the location to Ray, they move in. Ray blocks off the refuse truck from the front while Bosco, in a Suburban, cuts it off from the rear. Bosco rushes up to the driver's side, pointing a gun at Ba and ordering him to step out of the truck. With Ba out of the way, Bosco takes control of the refuse truck and the rest of the crew falls in line as they head to the dump site. Nick speeds through the streets of LA, determined to find Ray's crew. As he drives, he spots Donnie walking down the street. Without hesitation, he pulls over and Mac watches from a distance as Gus and Tony Z force Donnie into Nick's truck. Once inside, Nick and the others rough Donnie up, demanding Ray's location. After taking a beating, Donnie finally gives up Ray's whereabouts. At the dump site, Ray gets a call from Mac, who informs him that Donnie has been compromised. Mac assures Ray that he's still in the clear and asks for instructions, but Ray, frustrated, hangs up without answering. He tells Ensign that both Donnie and Mac are burned, and the crew quickly leaves in the Suburban. Meanwhile, Nick gets a visual on Ray's Suburban and follows them onto a congested freeway. He radios the location to detectives Murph and Baracho. In the rearview mirror, Ray spots Nick's truck about 20 cars behind as the traffic crawls to a stop. Gus handcuffs Donnie to the inside of Nick's truck before joining Nick and Tony Z outside. As Murph and Baracho arrive, Ray, Ensign, and Bosco exit the Suburban ready for a fight. Ray opens fire, immediately hitting Baracho and killing him. Chaos erupts as the regulators fire back, and the freeway is thrown into anarchy with bullets ripping through cars and shattering glass. In the midst of the firefight, Bosco takes a fatal bullet to the neck, while Ray incapacitates Tony Z with a shot to the knee. Ray and Ensign make a break for it, running down the street with Nick hot on their heels. Gus manages to gun down Ensign, leaving Ray on his own. Ray shoots Murph in the arm before ducking into an alley, with Nick in pursuit. In a tense showdown, Nick shoots Ray, severely wounding him. Struggling to reload his weapon while lying on the ground, Ray somehow manages to get his gun ready and forces himself to his feet. He walks toward Nick, firing off rounds, but Nick reloads and shoots Ray in the chest. Ray collapses behind a car, frantically searching his vest for more ammo. Realizing he's out of bullets, Ray stands and points his empty gun at Nick. Despite his uncertainty about whether the gun is loaded, Nick reluctantly fires, killing Ray in self-defense. Nick returns to his truck only to find that Donnie has escaped. He and Gus search the Suburban and discover that the black bags they recovered are filled with shredded bills. Determined to find answers, Nick heads to the bar where Donnie used to work. The owner informs him that Donnie quit 2 days ago. As Nick sits at the bar, he notices 2 Fed employees walk in, their access cards around their necks. His eyes fall on a photo of a football team hanging on the wall. He immediately recognizes Donnie, Mac, Ba, and Alexi, all part of the same team. Nick steps out of the bar and gazes directly at the Federal Reserve Bank across the street. It hits him. Donnie was the mastermind behind the entire heist. The realization washes over him as he pieces it all together. Meanwhile, across the ocean in London, Donnie is bartending at a local pub, now sporting a British accent. At the bar, Mac, Ba, and Alexi are laughing and enjoying drinks, clearly thriving in their new life. As this scene unfolds, we're taken back to flashbacks of how it all started. Donnie approaching Ray with the plan to rob the Federal Reserve. We see the intricacies of Donnie's scheme, how he cleverly hid the money from the Ziploc bags, stashing it inside tires, and then shipping it all to Panama. Donnie's true genius is revealed as the one who manipulated both Ray's crew and law enforcement, walking away with the fortune while remaining a ghost in the aftermath. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.